Hey, I'm going to review the video called Earthling Ed Reveals Strangest and Creepiest Anti-Vegan Arguments.
I think what's rewarding about those conversations is I quickly realized that people use the same arguments. Whether I'm in the UK, Germany, Switzerland, America, Canada, wherever I've been and had these conversations, people don't have new things to tell me. Really by and large, everyone says the same things. It's a food chain, it's a personal choice, I like how meat tastes, and that fills me with a lot of confidence.
How come you never address the point that plants don't have over 50 nutrients? I've never seen you do that. I know why. That would destroy the whole idea of veganism.
Because I recognize that most people are just unconscious or engaged in some sort of autopilot where we're doing this thing unconsciously and we don't really have any excuses. We're just regurgitating the excuses that we've seen people use online, and we've never really critically reflected on the veracity of those excuses.
You don't need an excuse if you follow your natural instinct. You eat what you want to eat. If humans want to eat meat, and that's because it's our natural diet, then we don't need an excuse to do that.
So that's definitely filled me with a lot of confidence. But at the same time, there are certain things that can happen that make you think, wow, humans, we've got a lot of work to do.
You are very far from being confident. I would call you insecure and afraid. That's what I always sense when I see you.
Especially, not to necessarily pick on America, but I find that some of the crazy conversations I have tend to be in the US. I'm sure there's a...
Very passive-aggressive, of course, also.
You mean the crazy beliefs that people have?
Definitely. There's a lot more kind of a political opinion there about veganism. I think it's a little bit more politically divisive there. I think that there's a religious argument there that we don't necessarily find in more secular areas of the world, like here in the UK.
Look at how big that suit is. I bet he got the smallest suit possible, and even that doesn't fit. Just look at his wrists and how big it is. It just doesn't fit whatsoever.
All of the US. It's in the heartlands of Texas. And so I kind of gone with a little bit of trepidation, kind of an awareness that maybe people wouldn't respond that well. But to be fair, everyone responded.
I just really have to say it. He just looks like a girl. He's incredibly girly. I've never seen such a feminine man.
Really well. But this one guy had a very unusual argument. And what it boiled down to was he said that eating meat gives us bloodlust.
Oh, really?
Bloodlust.
That's very interesting, innit?
Why would you want that? And he was like, well, we need a little bit of bloodlust so that we can be competitive and so that we can, make sure that we don't lose our standing as humans.
Wow.
And then we kept going a little bit further and further. And he said to me, no offense, no disrespect. And I said, no, that's fine. Whatever you want to say, just say it. And he said, if the US went vegan, we would become weak.
Wow.
And then we would be more vulnerable to our enemies, like China. And I was like, so just to clarify, the reason that we should eat meat in America is because if we don't, America will be overrun by communist invasion. And he was like, yeah, pretty much. And I was like, that is potentially the strangest argument I've ever heard in my life.
Wow.
Right? So there is
It's not even a bad point.
definitely a strangeness to some people's reasoning. What we need and what we desperately...
That's it. He doesn't even explain really why it's strange. I would say it makes a lot of sense because meat does make us strong, obviously, and also strong-minded, not weak-minded like vegans who fall for such nonsense. Most people who live in Europe and the US have been fed a plant-based diet since their birth, essentially. Of course, this will make them weak-minded, which is why they fall for veganism later on.
striving to do is cut through the misinformation that has been perpetuated and has been perpetuated for decades, and reshaping the narrative that has been fed to us for so
What's the misinformation? Give some actual arguments.
long. And that's what I think this vegan propaganda thing is about. It's about leveling the playing field, and it's about saying, look, this is what the scientific community is telling us, this is what the medical community is telling us, this is what our moral intuition is showing us. It's time to listen to that and not,
If you listen to studies, for example, you're gonna get a lot of mixed results, and overall, you're gonna find a lot of epidemiological studies, it's not science, which will say that veganism in some way will help a little bit here and there, but overall, when you look at actual studies, then for the most part, you will see that vegetables are toxic, blah, blah, blah. Everything really goes against plants. And of course, you also got to realize that studies are almost always funded, and there is a specific outcome that the people who pay for the studies want to see. and then they can sell you supplements, for example, and whatnot.
Heads of the NFU know that rainforests in South America are not being destroyed for soy milk and tofu, but are being destroyed to feed the chickens and pigs and dairy cows. They know that, but they're more than happy to go to the press.
No. Soy, for the most part, is being fed to humans nowadays. Soy is everywhere. That's what it's used for the most part. Yes, a lot of it is also fed to livestock.
And say with a straight face, or vegans are destroying the rainforests.
With their avocados
With their
and their
exactly.
soya mints.
And they know better, because these aren't unintelligent people, quite the opposite. They're intelligent people who are using their intelligence to manipulate people in a way that isn't fair, in a way that is propagating lies, and in a way that is holding us back from actually creating what would...
Even if that was true, why not just promote nature? Humans eat their natural diet, the animals eat their natural diet, and so on. Everybody wins. There's enough grass out there.
One of the ways the meat industry or the various animal product industries prop up alien consumer confidence in animal farming are things like red tractor.
We just have to recognise what's there in front of us. You know, when you do a little bit of digging into the red tractor scheme, you realise that it's not worth the ink it's printed with. It is a truly disgraceful scheme that was set up by the animal farming industries. It's owned by the NFU, by Dairy UK. So the very people it's supposed to be holding accountable are the people who own it. And if you look at the board of directors, one of the board of directors is also a CEO of one of the most powerful meat lobby groups in the UK. And so these are the people who are creating the guidelines, who are in the board of directors for the red tractor scheme, which is supposed to reassure us that animals are treated with kindness and compassion, yet they're also the people who are making, billions, as an industry off of the exploitation of animals. There was an investigation done by...
That may all be true, I don't know about that, but why don't you mention that the study that all of the vegans quote, that it's sustainable and healthy for all stages of life, even babies, was of course funded and created by vegans and vegetarians.
There's no right way to do the wrong thing. We look at gas chambers, for example. Gas chambers are, seen as this humane method of killing animals. Well, back in 2003, the UK government's own Animal Welfare Committee said that gas chambers should be phased out nearly 20 years ago. Wow. But now we kill nearly 9 out of 10 pigs in a gas chamber. The majority of birds are killed in gas chambers.
All that they're talking about the last 2-3 minutes is fear and suffering, very similar to other religions. If you want to stop the gas chambers, for example, then that's fine, but you use it as a point to stop killing animals altogether, which makes 0 sense.
It's normally over 80%, which is highly aversive, causes not only the panic of suffocation, but causes an aversive, painful reaction with the acidification of moisture with these pigs. So they're enduring a painful experience whilst also suffocating, and the panic and fear that comes along with that. And so, they're just these big pits that pigs are lowered into, 2 or 3 pigs at a time, filled with CO2 that obviously causes them to suffocate to death whilst also experiencing pain. And it's a similar thing for chickens. So they are just absolutely, obviously terrible. I mean, how we could ever say that these things are humane just shows how, I suppose, detached we are from what we do to animals. Because
the word humane doesn't make much sense anyway, because it would simply be implying that you're doing something that humans do naturally, and of course humans cause a lot of suffering when needed. Humans kill animals and so on, not in this way specifically, but to call it humane or inhumane.
But humane means having or showing compassion or benevolence. If we call someone a humane person...
It doesn't make sense though, because humans are not always compassionate. There's time for that when you're with your family and friends and so on, but there's also time for fighting and whatnot, whatever. It just depends on the situation. You can't call being compassionate humane because it's not human.
Needlessly killing someone else is the last thing that person would be doing, because being humane means being compassionate.
Right.
But
no.
How is putting an animal in a gas chamber, how is cutting their throat compassionate or kind? It's the opposite of these things.
Can there ever be such a thing as a happy farm animal?
No. I mean, obviously some animals raised in farms will have experiences that might be, okay for them, such as grazing cattle. Pasture-raised animals may, have, a significant portion of their life where they're doing things that they would like to do. But this happiness is a state. It's not just a temporary thing. And so from even these systems of farming which are more idyllic and more quote-unquote humane, there's still basic things that are required within animal farming. A lot of that's mutilations, forced impregnations, separations of babies from their mothers, and ultimately slaughterhouses. If we really want to prioritize the happiness of animals, then we need to act in their best interests, which we don't. We act in the best interests of us, the consumers, but also the farmers who want to profit from these animals.
Humans, as far as meat goes, act in the best interest of other humans. Of course, it's a business for the most part, and they also want to make money, but it comes from providing food for people, and meat is the healthiest food for humans. That's generally why we started farming very long ago.
And so whilst our intentions are to exploit and profit from the bodies of someone else, we're not facilitating true happiness for these animals, even in systems that we may perceive to be more beneficial.
There is no need to provide true happiness to other animals. It only matters how healthy you are as a human being. Of course, it's the same for other animals that eat other animals. Of course, they don't care how happy the animal is, seeing as they hunt them. And of course, I also promote hunting. If anything, you should not eat farmed animals anyway if you have the possibility of hunting. But most of us don't nowadays, so we have to rely on the best farmed animals that we can possibly get.
Then, of course, the factory farming systems that we all recognize are truly despicable.
Alright, that was the whole video. A typical vegan video, which has no arguments. Nothing there would ever convince me to go vegan or even in any way consider it at all, because all that they talked about were morals, man-made rules to live by. No, I would like to live by the rules of nature, of course. Why would I start eating a man-made diet and follow man-made rules and then get sick because of that and generally be miserable because you're not living your natural life? It doesn't make any sense. And this guy will never address the root problem of veganism, and that is that it's malnutrition. Because as I said at the beginning, plants don't have over 15 micronutrients. That's freaking a lot. There is no other argument needed as to why you should never even consider going vegan. If you believe in man-made morals and that you should not hurt animals, then you're lost anyway, because you are living by somebody else's rules. Another human being made the rules that you should live by. Think about your life. Thanks for watching.